Hi guys, welcome to Interior Analysis. I'm Carla.
I'm Evan.
And today we are going to be doing or reviewing The Dreamers. So this is a 2003 romantic drama film directed by Bernardo Bertolucci. The first draft of the screenplay was an adaptation by Gilbert Adair, who wrote a novel called The Holy Innocents. During pre-production, Bertolucci made changes to it. He pepped the narrative with clips from the films he loves and dropped a few hints of homosexuality, including scenes from the novel that depict Matthew and Theo, and he cut out a lot of things. And so after the film was released, he actually said that the film was faithful to the spirit of the book, but not the letter. It grossed $2.5 million in the United States theatrical release, and it is taking place in Paris, France of 1968. So I guess we should start off with the characters. So the main character, well, there are three main characters. It's Matthew, Isabel, and Theo. Matthew is played by Michael Pitt. He is an exchange student from the U.S. who went to Paris, France to study French. So the Cinémathèque Française...
I never took French, so I don't know either.
I took French for 4 years, and look at me now. There was a huge protest.
And is that a real event, the protest?
Yeah.
It seemed like it, but I wasn't sure.
Believe so. And there were mass protests because of the firing of Henry Langlois. But here in this protest, he meets the two free-spirited twins, Theo and Isabel. He is very innocent, very wide-eyed type of guy who's open to anything, but also has his moments of doubt and suspicion, especially towards the twins. And then there's Isabel. She is played by Eva Green. This is Theo's fraternal twin sister. She's very, very stubborn, will convince and talk the two into basically doing anything. She's very witty. She is also very young-spirited, and she is quite dramatic. She seems to be kind of an initiator within the group. She's the one who kind of tends to come up with the crazy and weird ideas for the three of them to fulfill or do, and she's kind of like the center of the attention.
I'd say she's the ringleader-ish. Mm-hmm. If you were going to pick one, it would be her.
Yeah, no, exactly. And then there's, lastly, Theo, who is played by Louis Garrel. This is Isabel's fraternal twin brother. He is the most reserved, kind of the most judgmental, and the most protective one. He's very, very protective of Isabel. He has a very complicated relationship with his father, which we learn at the beginning of the film. This infers that he is a bit affected by this throughout the entire film. He drops hints. And this especially propels the need for Theo to kind of fight back against politics.
We never really get any closure on that. It seems like either they don't have anything at the end with the parents coming home or finding out what happened or anything.
And that's a very weird ending.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the ending. It was a weird ending.
Yeah.
But we don't have to talk about that yet.
Right. Yeah, so he's kind of angsty, almost. Like, he's just very angsty throughout the film. And also, I think, personally, he's the most mature of the trio.
Yeah, I don't know about most mature. Like, I think maybe it depends on what you mean by mature. Because in some ways, Matthew is probably the most, maybe the best way to say it is he's, the least innocent of them. Mm-hmm. He seems like he's seen more of the world than the other two.
Right.
So in that sense, he's kind of got, I don't want to say an upper hand, but he's got a perspective that they don't have. Mm-hmm. Theo, I can see where you're coming from, how he might be more mature, but he's also, there's a lot he doesn't know about, and that's kind of the source of the conflict between him and his dad, is that, from what I read it as, it was he feels like he knows, how the world works, and his dad's like, no, you think that because you're on the outside looking in, you haven't actually gone out and done anything.
And this makes him angry. This makes him, frustrated.
Yeah, there were those two, I think it was at least one, maybe two scenes where, he and his dad really go at each other about it.
Yeah.
So this is kind of the only thing the main thing that I noticed when I was watching it. So this was kind of confusing to me, and maybe you can shine some light on it, but I was confused about how Theo felt about revolution, because he talks about it a lot throughout the movie, like, but I couldn't figure out what his stance on it was, because he seems like he's pro-revolution, but he's not willing to, like, as Matthew says, he's not willing to go out in the streets and, like, actually take part in these protests that are happening outside of, like, the one of the theater that they're protesting the closing of. So he's not, like, really involved with it. And then when they're talking about Mao later, I think it seems like Theo's, like, into Mao, but then Matthew's, like, talking to him and trying to talk him into getting on Mao's side. He says, like, why don't you think of Mao as a great director making a movie with a cast of millions and books, not guns? I couldn't tell if Theo's for, like, violent revolution or if he's against it and he's more, like, cultural. I guess it's kind of hard to talk about this without talking about the ending, because it seems like at the end he's choosing to take part in, like, the violent side of the revolution. But that was where I felt like the problem came up, because they didn't really stick the landing. Like,
right. That's an interesting viewpoint, because I totally see what you're saying now that I'm thinking back at the film, because this whole time I kind of was like, I think he's just he loves to romanticize things, and I feel like he romanticizes revolution and romanticizes, like, war and stuff, especially when he says, when him and his father are talking about it, and they're fighting about it.
Yeah, because there's the line that, like, the one line that his dad is famous for writing in a poem, I think it was. Yeah, where it's a petition is a poem,
and a poem is a petition. Yeah. But
he seemed like Theo seemed like he was against that.
Right.
There was just, like, there were a lot of sides of an argument about revolution that came up. I couldn't tell where he stood.
Theo supports it. I think he supports revolution. I think he supports fighting, and his father is more of a, like, I stand back and fight wars with my writing. Whereas Theo is like, that is absolutely pointless. I mean, like, it's beautiful in a sense, but, like, I think he...
But then again, he's like, when Matthew's telling him, like, if you really believed you'd be out there doing something, and he shoots him down, like, don't call me out on that.
Right.
So
because he
doesn't want to. Like, I can't tell if he actually wants to or not. Like, I couldn't figure that out, because it seems contradictory. And, like...
Yeah. I kind of took it like he does want to, but, like, something holds him back from doing so. And the fact that Matthew calls him out on it, it makes him very upset, because he knows.
Yeah, but then later, like, Matthew's discouraging him at the end. He was discouraging him from taking part, because it was violent. So I understand where Matthew stands on it.
Right.
But he was, like, it was hard to see in those arguments, like, throughout the movie, is he trying to convince Theo that he should or shouldn't be taking part in this revolution? And I kind of had a problem with that. I think it was a good theme to go into, and, like, they used the setting well to, like, have it set during, like, a time when there's, like, an actual revolution, and there's the Vietnam War going on, and there's all these protests, and they're also protesting this theater that's closed down that they love. Like, that was a good setup, and at the same time, they're, like, isolated and, like, just living in their own world with just the three of them. So that was a good, I guess there was a good contrast there.
Right. I feel like there's definitely a deeper underlying meaning.
Yeah, and maybe the book did it a little better and like fleshed that out more. I might be like getting a little too worked up about it, but I just feel like there's not, like, it doesn't, it was inconsistent, and it could have done a lot better than it did with dealing with that theme.
Right. Do you think it dealt with it at the end, though?
No, because I think maybe to me it felt like they were killing off killing off Theo and Isabel just to have an ending. Like,
really? You think they
that's
died?
what it felt like. I thought that was pretty strongly implied that they both died.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I thought so.
Wow. I didn't get that at all. I thought they were just kids fighting against it, and then, not going to know, like, what's going to happen after. But then also, like, well, I guess we could go more into this topic at the end, because it might be actually, they might have tried to kind of not care if they die or whatever.
Yeah, especially, I guess it doesn't really matter in terms of, like, the character relationship if they died. Mm-hmm. I just felt like it was it felt to me like it was slapping on an ending for no reason, like, without really meaning anything.
Yeah.
And I think it could have, they just didn't develop it well enough early enough, so they couldn't stick the landing.
Right. Okay.
So that's basically my 2 cents. That's the most opinion I have about this. The strongest opinion I have about this movie.
Cool.
So.
Yeah, no, we should definitely touch up on that, like, towards the end, because it is pretty... It's a good topic of discussion.
Well, I pretty much said what I wanted to say, so if you want to go into it more, that's fine, but we don't have to, like...
Okay, let's jump to the music and soundtrack. Okay. So, the music advisors were Julien Sauvage and Charles Henry de Purif. I don't know if I said that right. Okay. But one of the quotes, while they were making the movie and the music for it, one of them said, while its juxtapositions of French tradition and counterculture are jarring at times, Dreamers still does a worthy job of capturing the film's personal and political revolutions through music.
Yeah. And they had some like the, I wouldn't say like the stereotypical, but they had like some of the Vietnam War. Like,
Hendrix. Songs. They had Jimi Hendrix in there. They had the Steve Miller Band, the Doors.
Yeah, Eric Clapton, I think, right? There was the debate about, like, Clapton versus Hendrix.
Yeah, so they had, and even the songs they played, it was all American bands, but also, or American artists, but also French artists. You have Edith Piaf, Francois Hardy, you know. And I thought that was very clever of the music directors to incorporate.
Yeah, the credit song also, I mean... I figure I'll just throw this in there.
Yeah.
It doesn't really apply, but if you've seen Inception, you probably recognize the song in the credits as the one they use for the kicks. I love Inception, so I was like, hey,
that's it.
I know that's totally not relevant, but like I could like.
Yeah, it was non je regrette rien.
Yeah.
I think I said that right, maybe.
That sounds right from what they sing in the song.
Yeah, by Edith Piaf, who, if you know anything about French culture, she is one of the biggest influencers in the music industry in France. I think it's noteworthy to talk about the music and soundtrack, which is also on Spotify, that you guys should definitely check out. Okay. All right, let's jump to this scene. So, for me personally, I think... what made me absolutely love the film was, like, how aesthetically pleasing each scene was. Or most scenes.
In what way? Like, structure or...
In the way that it was just shot. And, like, the colors and, like, that weird film that was kind of over the movie, like an old, like...
Oh, yeah, how it
feeling.
looked kind of like, I don't know, maybe, like, 70s era.
Yeah.
Where it was a little bit, like, grainy.
Exactly. And, I don't know, for example, some of my favorite scenes to... mentioned were, you know, when Isabel was chained to the gate and she had her cigarette dangling, and, you know, like, what she was wearing was very dramatic.
Yeah, she looked like
classic
a character or something.
Yeah.
Like a femme fatale in like a 30s noir or something.
Yes, exactly. And then the short series of scenes when Matthew was explaining the lighters, or the lighter thing, how the lighter just fits perfectly everywhere you put it. He actually says, the cosmic harmony of shapes and sizes, everything just fits together. And then every time that the three would be kind of lounging, kind of relaxing, like right before they get into the discussion of Mao and Eric Clapton and all that, and how beautiful it just all looks, because the camera pans over to the full room, and, like, you know, you see Theo reading, and it's just the colors and everything is just so well crafted and put together. You know, when they were running through the Louvre,
that was a good scene,
a great scene that was filmed so nicely, and how they just managed to first shoot, like, the in time, real life, what's happening now scenes,
and then split it with the clips from the movie that they're imitating.
Exactly. I thought that was.
Yeah,
I think that's why this is one of my favorite movies, because they just managed to do that in a very, like, suave way, in a very, like, flowy way.
Yeah,
that didn't feel like forced or anything. It was very nice. So
the like showing the comparison between, like, the old movies, like I don't think I've seen almost any of them. Although maybe in film history we touched on it, but, like, it was pretty, like, eloquent, I guess, the way that they did it. I think I would have appreciated it more if I, like, knew more about the movies they were referencing.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of something that they weren't doing it for that, because it's set in the 60s, and they were all talking about, like, stuff that was classic in the 60s. So most people now are probably not going to know.
Oh, Yeah, no, like, probably our, like, grandparents would know, or great-grandparents.
And maybe not even them.
Yeah, because, yeah, exactly, unless you're, like, a big film head.
Yeah, they're talking about, like, Buster Keaton and Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
From, like, the 30s or whatever.
Old school.
Yeah, really old school.
Yeah, so it seems like that, I thought, was very, very nice. And I think that is what made that movie so remarkable, you know? Because I've never seen that in film, and I still haven't seen that.
Yeah, I don't think I have either, come to think of it. I mean, there's stuff that certainly references, like, Tarantino's, like, famous for lacing in stuff from, like, movies that no one's ever seen. Mm-hmm. But he doesn't do it as explicitly, or at least, like, he doesn't call it out.
Right.
Directly like this does.
Right. So, I think this topic is very important. It's short, but it's very important. It's, all the games they would play. Yeah,
that was what I was kind of expecting more of when I saw this, because, like, the trailer makes it seem like they're gonna, like, end up having three-ways throughout the movie. So I was a little bit, like, I was okay that didn't happen.
Yeah.
I was like, alright, this might be, and you told me this is, like, a really weird movie.
Yeah, it's a very...
and they kind of make it seem like that in the trailers.
Yeah.
Which didn't happen, but, like...
And it was supposed to happen, actually. They were, like... I think it was, like... I don't know if they were supposed to have a three-way, but I know that Theo and Matthew were supposed to have sexual relations. And... obviously, we see in the movie that that Matthew and Isabel end up kind of dating, almost. Yeah. But
it's a weird relationship. Because, like, apparently, like, that's when we start finding out that, like, they've basically never been out of the house.
Yeah, it's, like very... I mean, we'll touch up... Those are the next two things. But yeah, with the games. For those of you who haven't seen the film, hopefully you have seen the film. But anyway, the three play film trivia games. Basically... what this is where one of them will suddenly, out of nowhere, act out a scene and say, what film is this from?
Oh,
or, like, give a very small hint to being like, okay, blah, 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 what's this film? And then if they can't guess it, whoever doesn't guess it...
Yeah, it's almost like truth or dare.
Exactly. Like, one person, you know, whoever is the first to guess it wins, and then the other one has to do a dare.
Yeah.
Some examples. After Theo loses a trivia game, Isabel sentences him to masturbate to a poster in front of Isabel and Matthew. And
that was the first one, right? Like, I think that was when I remember Matthew being like,
yeah,
right, what's going on?
That's when I think that... Because throughout the beginning of the film, it's very innocent, it's very fun, and, like, they're just, like, you know, having fun with it. But then, and it's very, like, whatever dares, but then, like, that was...
Yeah, and Theo, like, starts to, like, we start seeing some of his dark... Well, I guess it's not the first time, but he's, like, he really doesn't want to play along with Isabel.
Right.
Like, and this is the first time we see conflicts between them.
Yeah.
I think, right?
No, yeah. We start to see tension.
Yeah.
And where he's kind of like... it's weird, though, because I get a sense that Theo knows what Isabel is kind of capable of, and because, like, this probably has happened in the past, but he's probably very upset by it, even more, because it's in front of Matthew.
Maybe that's it, because I kept on, like, it seemed like they're like, Theo and Isabel were, like, growing apart a little bit, and, like, there was, like, tension growing between them.
Right.
I kept on expecting that to come to a head, and, like, I don't know, they'd have to, like, either abandon Matthew, or one of them would have to abandon the other, or something. And that didn't happen, but, like, it seemed like it was going that way.
Right, like, there was, exactly. Like, introducing this third person started to, like...
I mean, if it's just these three people, and that's the movie, like... You expect it's kind of a given. There's going to be something, like, it's going to be conflict between the three of them. They're going to upset each other.
Something's going to, it's
like
bound.
I don't know if you've ever seen this, but for people who took film history at Drexel, Jules and Jim is kind of a classic, like, French movie where it's all about that. So I was kind of expecting that, too.
I think I would, too, if I knew what you were talking about.
Yeah, well, don't take film history, because it's not a good class. But,
really?
Yeah, it's not.
Wow. Great.
Yeah, that's just where I know it from, so...
You heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
So that's the first weird, rocky moment in the movie, and then it kind of just surpasses it, Theo and Matthew have a conversation about it, and Matthew's, like, pretty flustered and is like, I have sisters and they've never, or I have siblings and they've never forced me to masturbate in front of them.
Or anything like that.
Or anything like that. And then Theo just, like, I think he just gives a very bullshit answer, like, a very artistic, like...
Yeah.
You know, and it was kind of like...
Like, kind of this is just how we are.
Exactly. And we were just like, oh, okay. Like, as an audience, it's just like, of course you would give that answer, because you're so, like, angsty and, like...
I mean, I guess.
I don't know. Anyway, the next incident, or the next game that gets really weird is after Matthew loses.
Yeah, and then that's the first time I think he, like, comes into direct conflict with them.
Right.
He's like, pump your brakes, like,
right.
I'm not good with this.
Right, exactly.
I know you guys are, but this is not.
This is not, this is not how he rolls. So basically, he is seduced into taking Isabel's virginity. What happens is that he loses the game. Theo pretends to convulse on the floor, and then he says, "What film?" And
he can't guess it.
And he can't. But it was like a very, like, you can't guess that, and it's, I don't know. I feel like no one could guess that. So he set up Matthew for failure.
Okay, yeah, I can see how that might have happened.
He, like, purposely, I personally feel like he purposely set up Matthew for failure.
Right, that makes sense. Like, it'd be like, we all have that one thing that only we've seen.
Exactly.
And he probably just pulled out one of those.
Exactly, and, like, it was him dying. It was a specific scene. The scene was Scarface, and it was, I'm pretty sure it was Scarface.
The original, yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was, the original Scarface, and it was, like, some guy. I'm pretty
probably, like, I think it's
the main character.
The main character dies at the end. I saw that one in film history.
Yeah. What's his name?
Tony. It's not Tony Montana though. It's he has a different name in that one. It's like Tony Clemente.
Tony gets shot. Yeah, Tony gets massacred, and Theo reenacted that, but everyone gets...
That could be any movie. So they're setting him up for failure.
Exactly. So then Matthew obviously doesn't know, and then he actually says that's not fair, like, how was I supposed to know that? And then Isabel just, like, takes her top off, because she's, like, super down for it when Theo says, like, your dare is have sex.
Sister.
Yeah, with my sister. Very... interesting scene.
That was when they dialed it up, I guess, with, like, showing how weird the relationship was. Because, like, Theo stays, and, like, Matthew and Isabel get closer after that, and, like, he's kind of okay with it, but he's still, afterward, is like, how does Theo fit into this? Like, do I have to worry about him now?
But I think what happened was that, like, I think this is what happened. I think Theo, like, knew, or he kind of suspected that Matthew and Isabel had this, like, thing. Yeah. Had this romance.
He just wanted to spark it.
And no.
I wasn't thinking of that when I saw it.
I think he got upset by that. And I think he started feeling like a third wheel. Mm. And he knew it, and I think that's why he did that. To prove...
I wasn't thinking of that, but that could...
It could be. I mean, I'm not... I don't know,
it definitely could. There's evidence to back that up.
Right.
So.
This is also kind of... right after that happened, Matthew, like, runs around the house and, like, he tries to kind of hide from them, and then they, like, forcefully, like...
Yeah.
They find him, and then Theo kind of holds him back, and then Isabel finds a picture of herself in Matthew's pants. If you've seen the film, you know that was by accident, because Matthew was looking around.
It was?
Yeah, Matthew was looking around Theo's stuff, and then he found a picture of Isabel, and then Theo...
I thought he kept it on purpose, but I don't remember perfectly.
Well, Theo was, like, about to come in, and so he just shoved it in his pants.
He just never got around to... Okay.
Exactly, he never got around to, like, to getting it out, but anyway, so Isabel, like, pulls down his pants and, like, finds this picture while Theo's holding Matthew... But then, Matthew, like, voluntarily, like, I guess just gets seduced, and then he just... And it's so weird. Like, they're having sex right there, and Theo, in the room, in the kitchen, is just making eggs. He just is making eggs. And it was just this weird, like... Yeah. I don't know. It was very, very weird, and I feel like there definitely is an underlying meaning into that. Like,
maybe there was more explained with that in the book or something.
Yeah, like exactly. But yeah, so the games kind of start off fun, lighthearted, and then towards the end is just very like delusional and very weird and very, I don't know.
And I think it's, I was looking also with, like, the revolution thing at their isolation, and this is kind of where Matthews started to see, like, this is what, like, their isolation, and not, like, they don't seem like they know anyone else, and he says, I wish you could get outside yourself and just look like, this is weird.
Yeah.
And even just the, like, and it starts throwing everything else into a different light, like the way that they never leave the house.
Right.
And are, like, they only really know each other.
Yeah.
And he's been, like, he hasn't really noticed that up until this point, and now he's just kind of like, you guys are off. And, it's when things start seeming like they go downhill. And that never really comes to a head, but it seemed like it was starting to, like, go into a downward spiral here.
Yeah. No, exactly. I totally agree. And this is a perfect segue to the next topic, which is Theo and Isabel's relationship. So, if you haven't gathered by now, it's kind of an incestuous one. They never have intercourse. They never do anything.
But, like, Matthew feels like they have to convince him that they have it. Because he just feels like they have it.
Exactly.
They seem like they're that close.
Yeah, and, like, you know, especially when I think the very first instance of that is when Matthew is walking in the middle of the night, and then he opens the door and sees Matthew and Isabel lying naked next to each other sleeping, and he's just kind of like, whoa.
Okay. Like, doesn't mention it, but still is like,
he's just like,
side eye.
Yeah, like, he's like, what is happening? So I personally think that Theo and Isabel's relationship is toxic. Even Matthew starts to call out some weird moments when him and Isabel start dating. You know, that same exact thing, what you were saying. He's like, if you could see as a third person what you and Theo look like, you would probably be saying the same thing. Theo and Isabel, they think that they are growing together, but in reality, they hinder each other. Isabel has never gone on a date. Isabel has never, like, been with a guy. And they, like you mentioned, they both do not have friends. Like, it's only them two. And, I mean, I guess there's this one scene where Theo goes to school and, like, some guy is, like, talking to him.
I mean, they probably haven't been totally isolated, but we don't see them
introducing
part. Well, we don't see that they have any way of taking part in, like, they don't know people in the city. They just go to the one theater, and that's about all they do.
Right, and they only know the people from the theater, as we can see in the beginning of the movie.
I don't even remember seeing that we get introduced to anyone else from the theater.
Oh, we don't, but they're sitting with, like, all the theater heads in the front of the film, or in the front of the
right, but
theater.
they don't know any, like, it doesn't seem like they know any of them personally or anything.
Perhaps, yeah. It's not highlighted in the film, yeah, I agree. It also, within their relationship, Isabel treats Theo and even kind of views him as a god almost, as her mentor, as her, like, father type thing.
I kind of felt like she represented more, like, innocence for him. Like, he seemed like he was a little bit less guarded around her and, like, not as moody, and he didn't, like, I don't think he ever talks about revolution or, like, they don't talk about the conflict with his dad. I don't think the two of them ever talk about that. That was kind of him, like, being able to, like, go back to feeling like he was a kid again. Yeah, perhaps. And they're also under this impression that they are connected in every way possible. Theo even says we are Siamese twins. Yeah, which is the
joined at the mind type thing.
Oh, well, do we ever find out if that was true, or?
So, yeah. Okay, that's what I wanted to ask you. Do you actually think that they're twins? Do you think that they're actually fraternal twins?
I would say yes. I don't see any reason to not think that. I mean, I suppose it could be untrue, but I don't see why they would lie about it. So, why is that a question for you?
So the first time I saw this movie, I was actually a little bit confused, because I was like, wait, so they're twins, but then Theo goes into this whole thing about how they're Siamese twins and how, like, they're just, like, connected in the mind, blah, blah, blah.
So you think when they say twins, they mean, like, figuratively?
Exactly. I'm not totally set on that, because a part of me is also like, okay, well, they have matching scars or birthmarks. Maybe they are actually twins. So it's one of those things where it's like you said, it's never really outwardly, like...
I mean, we never get proof, but I don't see any reason to doubt it. So...
Okay, interesting, yeah. Cool. And, we all know that they're very sexually liberated and, like, super chill with nudity and, like, stuff like that. So, but also, I think that, I think we should definitely bring this up in that, like, not once in the film, like, again, does it show them having any relationship.
Yeah, but, like, Isabel says that it's never happened.
Exactly. So maybe, like, as a society outside of the film, we just think...
Well, yeah, I mean,
like...
if you look at our last couple episodes, like, we saw how, like, in Gone Girl, twincest was, like, this thing that sent Nick's public opinion down. Not really connected, but...
I mean, yeah, and, like, but maybe...
That's how it's viewed, and, I mean, it's
exactly.
not, it's frowned upon.
Yeah.
So...
And I don't know, maybe that's, like... it puts it into question. It puts into question why does society frown upon that? Because if they've never done any, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I think that's why it was really cool that they were super open with their sexuality and super open with like.
But I mean, it's not like
bodies.
they're publicly open with it. Like it's just to Matthew.
Yeah.
Which is different.
Yeah, because they trust him and stuff. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I personally was just like, like why? It's cool that they do this in front of Matthew, and then Matthew starts to change his mind about it.
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have to go into it. I have a few reasons why I would have problems with it.
Oh, no, I have problems with it, but yeah. It kind of makes you, look at social conditioning and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It makes you think about it.
It brings that up, yeah.
Right, so I think that's really cool. And so then the relationship of all three of them. I really like the scene. I think it's when Matthew felt really happy and like involved and stuff is when Isabel and Theo start like singing "We Accept Him, One of Us."
Yeah, which is a reference to whatever movie, but still, like, I mean, this is like he's kind of been alone for a while, and now he's found these, like, when he first meets him, he's like, I was just thinking about, I didn't want this night to end. Like, it starts off and it's like really great. Yeah,
like when you're, I don't know if you've
never been abroad.
You've never been abroad. Oh, okay. Well, when you're in a new, I've done my 2 co-ops abroad and love to travel. But anyway, when you're in a country alone, you're excited. You're so open to anything, and like you're so like ready for whatever comes to you. But then there comes a time like where you're kind of like, oh, I also want to make friends. I also want to like meet people. So
right, if you're there for a while, like he is.
Exactly, and like I know, for example, when I went to do my co-op in Berlin, I remember like the night that I met my friends that ended up being like my really good friends.
So you can like you have a parallel.
Exactly, like while I was watching, or when that happened, when I like met my group of friends and stuff, I actually did remember this film, and I was like, like
okay.
that's
pretty cool, actually.
Yeah, it's a really cool. Yeah, it's really nice to kind of like be like, oh, like I know what he's feeling right now.
Yeah.
He's feeling like this bliss and like happiness that like, wow, like I fit in. I think that's like a lot of people's fear when you travel, you're not going to fit in. You're going to like struggle. And I think the film did a very nice job of capturing that feeling and capturing his enthusiasm and like kind of relief when meeting Theo and Isabel without having him say it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he says it in voiceover.
Yes. But
not to them.
Yeah, so I thought that was really cool. And then they do basically everything together, especially once Matthew moves into the apartment while Theo and Isabel's parents are away. Like, that's when it's like nothing is separating them. And again, the relationship turns from crazy fun to that of eroticism and almost disappointment. Matthew,
I thought it was weird how like their parents just up and left for a month.
Wasn't it for like something that the father had to do with his work?
I think so, but it was still weird. I was like, all right.
Yeah,
maybe they did that. Maybe that was like conventional in the '60s or whatever. But that just still seems weird. That like you just leave them with like a blank check.
Yeah.
For like a few months. I was like, well, that's good. Like I mean, they end up using up the money, and then that's a problem. But it's like.
Right.
I don't know. That was just.
It was weird. No, I agree, and I feel like they could have executed that a little bit better, kind of to make a little more sense as to why they did that. Because I was also wondering that too. I was like, how long was it too?
I want to say it was a month. That sounds right. I think the dad said like we'll be back whenever. I may be remembering this wrong, but like near the end, the parents come back, right? They they step in and then leave.
Yeah. So what happened is that this has to do with all three of their relationships. So things start going downhill. They don't have food. They're kind of like...
They, like, scavenge in the trash.
Yeah, it's just getting weird now. And then when they don't have food and stuff, they just grab a bottle of wine and they start drinking, and then they just form a little, like, tent inside the house. They're all naked. And the parents walk in on them sleeping.
Yeah, I was expecting that to blow up, but then they were just kind of like, all right, well...
I think they were just so in shock. I think they just were like, what the hell is happening? Why are they all naked? It was...
Right. Well, if they left if they left their kids alone for a month, like, you can't do that and not expect something to happen.
Yeah.
That you're not okay with.
Yeah, something. I mean, yeah, like, I agree, like, something to happen, but then also, like, I would never expect my kids to...
No, it would still be shocking, but, like, they can't... It's not as if it should come out of nowhere that, like, their kids are going to act up in some way when they're gone for a month.
I don't know. I think I personally, if I had kids and walked into the room and just saw them naked... Like,
I'm not saying it was an unwarranted reaction. But it
was like, what? How could you not expect something bad to happen? Yeah, no, I agree. So that's what happened. So the parents walk in and they see this, and I guess they just were like, we're going to pretend we never saw this, and just wrote a check out, left it on the counter, and just left. And they just got in their car and left, and nothing was ever spoken about it.
I don't, like, do any of the three of them notice that it happens? I don't think
Isabel does.
Oh, Isabel does. Okay.
Isabel does. And that is when... But what happened was that Isabel wakes up before they do, and kind of, like, walks around or whatever, and then finds the check, and, like, freaks out quietly. She's just like... Oh my God, our parents just saw us, they, whatever. And then she tries to commit suicide, but I think she tried to take them down.
I was wondering about that too, because she, like, brought a gas hose into the tent with her. I was like, I thought she was going to kill herself, but I wasn't sure, like, I figured the hose was like gas, but I couldn't tell. And then, but then she doesn't, for some reason.
Yeah, it was, so yeah, this is the perfect segue to the ending, and the last scene that we're going to cover is... Yeah, so she grabs the hose, hooks it up to the gas from the stove, and then reels the hose into the tent. And she lays between Matthew and Theo. I think she kisses one of them.
I thought she was either going to kill herself or all three of them.
I think all three. I'm not going to... Because that's a tent, so the gas is just going to... Like, it was directly under her face.
I mean, it may not have worked, but it would have been close.
Right, so... I thought what was kind of comical is that when they wake up, she immediately just, like, takes the hose and hides it and pretends like that never happened.
Yeah, I just thought that was weird, because, like, it seemed like that was going to go somewhere, and then it didn't.
And then it completely didn't, and then, like, the riots started happening outside and stuff. And I think from the middle of the movie to the end, I really think that Matthew tried to separate Theo and Isabel, but not in a malicious way. He just wanted to kind of like help Isabel have her own life almost. And I think the ending kind of like, all of Matthew's efforts to separate Isabel from complete dependence of Theo ultimately fail. And I think that's when he realizes, like, no matter what I do, no matter where we are, like, I will not be able to infiltrate what they have. And that is very explicit in the very, very last scene where Theo takes a hold of Isabel's hand right after Matthew tries to tell Theo, like...
Yeah, when they're out on the street and there's, like, the riot happening.
Right. And then Theo just takes Isabel's hand and, like...
And they run off.
And then the film ends with a screenshot of them running into the... Or, like, what was it? It was like a screenshot.
I think it's just... It just shows, like, the riot from Matthew's perspective as it, like, goes down the street and the credits roll over that.
Yeah. With Edith.
Yeah, with the kick song from Inception.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I kind of take issue with the ending. If you like this movie and want to keep liking it, skip over like a minute because I might ruin it for you here.
He's about to demolish it. That's what's about to happen.
I'm not going to demolish it, but I might say some things that make you not like it. It's happened before, so I mean, it just felt like so rushed to me.
I see that. I totally see that, yeah.
It seemed like they were going to end it, like, most of the movie was about, like, the three of their relationships, so I felt like it should end with something like that, if that was what it was going for. And then it ends with, like, the revolution. And I think that could have been a good ending, but they didn't, like, it wasn't a big enough deal throughout the movie.
Yeah, they should have touched up more on it throughout the movie.
So, the problem isn't even that as an ending. That's okay. Like, the things that led up to it on their own, that's okay. But they didn't, like, the ending doesn't fit with, it doesn't really connect with everything that happened before it. Like, it's not really thematic in any way. It's like, they just threw it in, kind of.
Well,
that's what it felt like. For one thing, this isn't, like, really my kind of movie. I didn't hate it, but there wasn't anything I particularly liked about it either. So, like, if you don't have a problem with it, like, that's nothing against your, like, taste or anything, so that's, like, I'm not trying to, like, slam it too hard, but I really appreciate it more when, like, there's a bit more care in crafting the ending.
Yeah.
I feel like this was just kind of weak in that sense.
No, I'm actually not disagreeing with you at all. I think it does have a connection, though. We see conflict within Paris at the beginning of the movie, and then, we see it at the end. I agree. I kind of think they should have, in the middle, touched up more on it, or had more incidents where...
Well, if they were going to end it that way, yeah. But if they were going to keep it as, like, the three... Like, it seemed like the movie wanted... Like, it was trying to be about the three of them. And then it just kind of left that. They were like, all right, like...
We're focusing on the revolution now.
It, like, primed it all up to like, have, like, climatic conflict at the end between the three of them, and then it never happened.
Well, I think... Here's the thing. I kind of think that... and right now I'm remembering that it is actually brought up throughout the movie when... Isabel and Matthew go on their date, and then they walk out, and then they see, like, a huge pile of, like, wood and, like, trash and stuff on the streets.
Oh, I don't remember. I remember them going out. I don't remember that.
Oh, okay. Well, that was one of the scenes. But anyway, I think I agree with what you're saying, but I think they still stuck to the main theme of the three, because throughout the whole movie, Theo and Isabel seem to be very careless. Matthew even says that in the movie. He says, that they're careless and they don't care about the destruction that they leave behind. Yeah. I think the ending emphasized that.
Well,
I think, they're careless. They don't give a shit of what Matthew is telling them. Like, you're going to die if you... Or you're going to get hurt.
It kind of proves, like, the point that they are not... capable of, like, existing in the world. Like, now that they're choosing to in the wrong way.
Right.
So it does kind of prove that point, I guess.
And I think, in a cinematic sense, I think, again, this whole film is all about underlying meanings and, like, very, like, discrete connections to past events in the film. I think one needs to kind of see this movie more than once in order to see that, in order to understand what the director is trying to make your mind work at. You know what I mean? To kind of get those wheels rolling and be like, wait a minute, that was connected to that, how, he said this, and then that later popped up, like, in any film, kind of.
It's open for interpretation, I guess.
Mm-hmm. It is open for interpretation. It's an ending that is very open. You don't get closure on anything. Yeah,
personally, I think it's a little too open, but it is thought-provoking enough, I guess. So.
Yeah. It strikes conversation. But yeah, so overall synopsis, I picked this film. I love this film. It's for one of my rating classes. We had to do reviews, and I actually did a review of this film. And I think it's great. If you're really into, like, French movies, or really into, like, indie, weird, kind of no action type movies, definitely watch this. I would, again, recommend watching it more than once in order to kind of get a more understanding of each character, of each situation, of each scenario. And that's what I have to say.
Well, I can't really speak as highly of it as...
No, go. You can bombard it if you want.
I won't do that. Because, like, it's not really my kind of movie. Although, I did, like, something that's out in theaters now is The Favorite, that... It seems similar. It's kind of like an unconventional love triangle in that sense. So if you liked this, like, I think there's potential that you could like The Favorite. I enjoyed The Favorite and didn't enjoy this, so maybe not. But that may be something to check out for people who did enjoy this. Yeah, I don't think, like, I can see how it can be, like, a favorite for people. I don't share that at all, but, like, I can see where you're coming from and liking it. So,
nice.
In that sense, like, I'll leave it at that.
Cool.
I would give it, like, a 5 out of 10, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's mostly just not really
your cup of tea.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, totally. And, like, I'm pretty sure we're going to run into that, like, throughout the... Yeah. We already have, like, you know... But it's cool. I think it's really cool because that way, like, the audience gets a sense of, like, a spectrum of movies.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And kind of, like... I don't know. I think, you know, this is a small little anecdote, but I think it's very important to see both sides of a movie. People who did not like the movie and people who really like the movie in order to get a full, like, idea of
to be fair, movie. Like, I try not to slam on stuff too much without warning people, because some people are like, oh, yeah, you can, like, no, say whatever, like, you can't ruin it for me, and I'm like, sure. and then I'll say something, and they'll be like,
damn.
Why'd you do that? I was like, I told you, I'll ruin this for you. Like,
yeah.
Like,
no, I totally feel that, dude. But yeah, cool. Thanks, guys, for listening in. Yeah. Let us know what you think about this. Evan, I know you have
so a couple quick housekeeping things.
Huge shout out for the logo to Bella Akhtarshinas. I always butcher your name. I'm so sorry. I love you, Bella. She's one of my close friends. She made the logo. She's very talented. And we have stickers now, which is very exciting. So if
ask one of the two of us, and we'll hook you up. They come in blue and black.
Yes. And they're pretty sick. Yeah, that wraps up everything.
That's pretty much everything. All shows will be posted to Spotify. So yeah, that's
cool.
Pretty much all the housekeeping. So we'll be back with The Star Is Born next.
Yes. Thank you so much, guys. We'll see you soon.